From tales of extreme misfortune to seemingly inexplicable scientific phenomena, we present to you the 10 worst abnormalities known to man. You'll be shocked at what some of these people have lived through. Number 10. Muhammad Kaleem. A young Indian boy named Muhammad Kaleem surprised doctors when he showed up with hands that were swollen to massive proportions. Each of the boy's hands weighed almost 18 pounds, preventing him from doing basic tasks such as tying his shoelaces or feeding himself. The deformity even kept him out of school, as teachers feared it would frighten the other children. When he did show up at school, he was often bullied by other kids. For years, doctors were befuddled by what they saw and were worried that the enlarged hands may have serious health consequences. They feared it may negatively affect his cardiovascular system and be life-threatening. But as Kaleem's story became more and more known, however, doctors from South India recognized his condition as a rare disease called macrodactyly. Dr. Raja Sabapathy performed a series of surgeries aimed at reducing the growth plates in his hands that, over time, should reduce the size of Kaleem's hands. Number 9. Runa Begum. Runa Begum was just a baby when she was diagnosed with a rare condition known as hydrocephalus. This means that fluid was building up around her brain, causing her head to swell up to 37 inches, well beyond what's normal for a human. Doctors actually believed Runa had little chance of surviving when she was first born, but according to a report, the 4-year-old child, whose parents earn a modest living in northeast India, received the money she needed for an emergency surgery through the help of a crowdfunding campaign. It was primarily a group of Norwegian students that helped to raise the money needed for the surgery, which ultimately resulted in a series of procedures where doctors were able to drain an excess of 10 liters of fluid from her head. The result was that the circumference of her head was significantly reduced to 23 inches. While Runa was not expected to even survive the surgeries, she lived to see her baby brother born. Doctors also performed a reconstructive surgery to reduce the size of her skull, which had also grown due to the fluid buildup in her brain. They're now hoping for a full recovery so that Runa can begin living a normal life. Number 8. Rudy Santos. Nicknamed the Octoman, Rudy Santos suffers from an odd deformity called craniopagus, or by its less scientific name, parasitic twin. The 69-year-old Philippines native has an extra pair of arms and legs attached to his abdomen, which belonged to the twin whom he absorbed during his mother's pregnancy. In addition to the extra arms and legs, Santos's deformity also sports extra nipples and part of a head with some hair on it. The condition has caused his right leg to stop growing, making it impossible for him to walk without crutches. But somewhat surprisingly, Santos opted not to have surgery in 2008, despite doctors being determined that they could successfully remove the growth. He states that he'd grown fond of the attachments and did not want to have them removed. Rudy Santos is the longest known survivor with this condition. In fact, he made his living during the 1970s and 80s by appearing in freak shows before taking a 10-year hiatus. Number 7. Abby and Brittany Hensel. Abby and Brittany Hensel are conjoined twins currently living in New Germany, Minnesota. The pair gives the appearance of sharing one body while having separate heads. They do, however, have 2 separate hearts and separate other vital organs, such as stomachs, spines, and lungs. At 26 years old, the pair has become extremely adept at functioning as conjoined twins. Simple activities such as running, swimming, and hairbrushing must be carefully coordinated, as each twin controls her own half of the body. They even obtained each of their driver's licenses as teenagers through sophisticated and coordinated efforts. Abigail would control the devices on the right, while Brittany controlled the left. Both controlled the steering wheel. They faced several complications early on in their lives, such as scoliosis and height disparities, but nevertheless have been able to function as normal as possible. Number 6. Didier Montalvo. Didier Montalvo of Colombia suffers from an abnormality called congenital melanocytic nevus, in which a giant mole forms somewhere on the body. In this particular case, a mole formed on his back, giving him the appearance of having a turtle shell. This deformity earned him the nickname Turtle Boy, and this mole accounts for about 20% of his body weight. Reports state that Montalvo's mole was removed in 2011, as doctors feared it may become malignant. The surgery proved successful, and the youngster is able to live a normal life. He's even decided to use his newfound health as an inspiration to others. With roughly 1% of all infants being diagnosed with congenital melanocytic nevus, Didier and his family have been traveling from his home in Colombia to comfort children all around the world who also suffer from the same condition. according to his mother, they've reached out to about 400 families who have been affected by the deformed moles. Number 5. Jose Mestre. 1971. At 14 years old, Jose Mestre of Portugal notices a tumor beginning to form on his lips. Fast forward to 2010, and the same tumor has grown 16 inches, completely covering his face. Mestre did not receive medical treatment for almost 40 years due to a number of factors, including misdiagnosis, money issues, and religious beliefs. It wasn't until 2010 that Mestre changed his mind and received what turned out to be a life-saving surgery when he had the tumor removed from his face. It took 4 operations total, 1 to remove the tumor and another 3 to reconstruct his face. Mestre did survive the ordeal, however, and was quickly able to return to his normal life just a few weeks after these procedures. Jose Mestre garnered quite a bit of publicity for his condition. In 2007, he was a subject of an episode of the Discovery Channel's My Shocking Story. But despite all this exposure, the situation was still turning deadly. The 12-pound tumor left him blind in one eye and spread into his mouth, making it difficult to eat or breathe. As it turns out, the condition was called hemangioma. It wasn't until he traveled to Chicago in 2010 to meet Dr. McKay McKinnon that his tumor was properly diagnosed and treated. Number 4. Hong Hong. January 2016. Hong Hong is born in the Hunan province of China with 15 fingers and 16 toes. These excessive fingers and toes were the result of a congenital disease known as polydactylism, which affects roughly 1 in every 2,000 newborn babies. The condition is apparently hereditary, as Hong Hong's mother has 6 fingers and toes. His family is trying to raise money to have the extra fingers and toes removed, as the operation costs about $30,000. Along with Hong Hong, there have been several well-known people throughout history that have either been rumored or confirmed to suffer from polydactylism. Anne Boleyn, for example, who was the Queen of England during part of the 16th century, was rumored to have 6 fingers. Comedian Drew Carey also claims to have 6 toes on 1 foot, while boxing champion Danny Garcia says he has an extra toe. Number 3. Huang Li Qian. Huang Li Qian is a Chinese native that had a massive tumor removed from his neck in 2007 after living with this deformity for 17 years. He initially ignored it, but it began to grow to massive proportions, eventually swelling up to 33 pounds and debilitating him from his normal activities. After beginning to experience severe pain and limited movement in his neck, Huang decided to seek medical help for his problem. Doctors confirmed that it was in fact a neck tumor, and they were ultimately able to successfully remove it. Number 2. Cutaneous horn. While horns are generally associated with an array of animals, there is a rare condition known as a cutaneous horn in which humans grow tumors that give off the appearance of horns. Medical experts do not know what causes this condition, but have theorized that exposure to radiation can cause its abnormal growth. It's believed in some instances to be the result of an HPV virus or burn scars. One such notable example of this condition is Zhang Rifang. In 2010, at 101 years old, the Chinese woman was photographed with an abnormal growth appearing as though it were a devil's horn. Zhang has grown very fond of her horn and said she looked forward to the second one growing to match it, which she claimed had already began forming in 2010. Doctors have offered to remove the horn, but Zhang refused, saying she enjoys the abnormality and claiming that people often visit her with food and gifts in return for having their pictures taken with her. Another example is Madame Dimanche, a 19th century elderly French woman whose cutaneous horn grew nearly 10 centimeters over a 6-year period. Doctors were able to safely remove the horn, and her case went on to be world famous. A wax model of her head is currently on display at the famous Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. Number 1. Hazel Jones. A woman named Hazel Jones was baffled as to why her periods were so painful and long-lasting. It wasn't until she was 18 years old that she discovered the bizarre answer to her question. Jones had 2 uteruses and 2 cervixes. This is the result of an extremely rare condition known as uterus didelphys, which affects less than 1 in a million people worldwide. As was the case with Hazel Jones, a second vagina also forms as a result of this rare condition. The cause remains largely unknown and affects less than 1% of all women. While it is usually manageable, it has been known to cause difficulties during pregnancy and often requires special attention. View more animal abnormality photos like these today on theywillkillyou.com by clicking on the link in the top right corner of your screen.